Ready, set, go.
Welcome to The Sweet Spot, an UpDog podcast. I'm Andrea Morissette.
And I'm Jack Bailey, and we are your hosts today.
Awesome. Today we have Chris Knapp as our guest. Everybody say, hey, Chris. All right, so tell us a little bit about you, Chris. Tell us about you, your dogs, where you're at, about your absolutely awesome Disc Dog Club.
Yeah, so my name's Chris. I'm from the St. Louis area. I actually live in Southern Illinois now, where I grew up. But I'm the president of the St. Louis Disc Dog Club. So we like to think we're the best one around. But I know we've grown a lot. So we're a very competitive club. Everybody likes getting together, have fun, have a good time. I was thinking about this earlier. I think this is right about my 13th year I've been competing to some extent. I believe my first years ago this year, so more than about 12. But I got 4 dogs. I have an old guy named Jack, let's picture him right there. He's still with us. He's retired. And then I have Marino, who's about ready to retire. He's a 12-year-old border collie. And then I have Shaka, who's an inherited dog, and Macho, my young guy.
Awesome. And we're going to be talking about the AKC Disc Dog Challenge today also. So just to put that in the space, that's why you're here as our rock star for our podcast.
And before we head into that though, Chris, we always find it interesting to find out, like, what do our disc doggers do when they are not disc dogging? So I know you just came home from work. Tell us, like, what do you normally do when you're not disc dogging?
Well, I work. This is about my first weekend home all summer. I felt like that I haven't been disc dogging. So I like to hang out with my friends. I like to play other sports. Play frisbee golf or disc golf. Play some soccer. Do some real golf. But mainly hang out with my friends. Hang out with Kira, my girlfriend. We find stuff to do, or I have some family that lives close by. So go play with the nieces, that kind of thing. Pickleball. But really, I think this week is going to be more of a relaxing pickleball. I've gotten into pickleball the last few months, so it's me and Tony Kelso.
That seems like that's taking over, man. I see pickleball everywhere.
Yeah, well, it's an easier way to play tennis, so it's there's not as much running. So me and I work a lot in Kansas City, so I drive, like on Monday morning. I drive to Kansas City, work for a few days, stay in a hotel over there. So Kansas City's obviously got a good group of disc doggers, so I hang out with those guys some. Me and Tony went and played pickleball a few months ago and both really liked it. We're old tennis players. So
that must have been an very entertaining first try of pickleball.
We were better than you'd give us credit for, because we played tennis. Like, I was a really good tennis player.
You guys were great. I'm sure it was just super fun.
But yeah, I don't chase down a lot of balls anymore, that's for sure. I'm just good shot. But yeah, no, it's fun. So I do that. I think this weekend's going to be about, I got to mow the yard and hang out in the AC. That's about it, what I'm going to do this weekend. I think I got a weekend to myself finally.
So one more pickleball related thing before we move on to the AKC Disc Dog Challenge. But
yeah,
just a word to maybe entice you to come to UpDiff next year. They are putting in new pickleball courts at the complex where UpDiff's going to be, because they were telling us that when we were there. They're like, yeah, the pickleball court's going right there. They'll be in when you guys are back. I'm like, oh, cool.
Maybe there you go. No, that's
and your pickleball. What is it? Racket? Is that what you call it?
Paddle. Yeah, whatever.
The pickleball paddle and your disc golf bag to UpDiff next year.
There you go. That's a good selling point. Yeah, that's absolutely.
We might have to do like a informal tournament or something in the evening.
There you go.
Jam on one side, pickleball on the other. I love it.
All right, Dre, get us back on track. We're all over.
Back on track. We're talking about TV. We're talking about the AKC Disc Dog Challenge today, and you were an absolute rock star on national television, which is awesome. You were phenomenal in both Far Out and Freestyle. So those are the games that you were invited for. What were you most looking forward to playing between those two games?
Definitely Far Out. I had a little trepidation on the Freestyle part, because I hadn't practiced a lot. Macho to me is a younger dog. And we hadn't had good rounds thus far that year or this year prior to. So it's definitely far out. I'd actually forgotten I signed up for freestyle or offered.
Dagger to the heart.
No, I was good. I wanted to play more than one game. I was really hoping to get in time warp because either one of my dogs are good at time warp, and I thought I could do that. So when I saw freestyle, I was like, oh boy, here we go. But it went well. So definitely was looking more forward to far out for sure. Yeah, I had a little what?
No, go ahead. You were saying.
I'd say I had a little more nerves. I don't get nervous very often. I had a little more nerves for the freestyle part of it, but
that's exactly what I was asking you. Actually, did you feel more nervous because of the freestyle then?
I did. Yeah, I did. Far out's pretty not. I wouldn't say easy, but I'd played a couple quadrupeds already in the spring and done well, so like that was locked in. I hadn't spent a lot of time practicing freestyle and that kind of thing, so I was just like, Macho, please don't land on your face, and please don't act like a psychopath.
Do you feel like he was, well, both of the things you were like, well, you were worried about what your performance would be, but did you feel like your dog would be stronger in one of them or the other? Like just jumping into far out or just jumping into freestyle, did you feel like he's better in one or the other, like kind of off the cuff?
Yeah, I think he would be better in far out off the cuff. Like I said, I'd already played some quadrupeds already in the months prior to that, and he'd done really well. I'd won 2 of them, so we were kind of locked in on that. And he had been a machine thus far. And like I said, we had a couple freestyle rounds that some were really good, some were hit or miss. He's a little squirrely guy, so sometimes he doesn't use his brain all the time. And in far out, he has enough time for his brain to kick in. Where freestyle, you never know. But he did awesome. I was incredibly proud of him. He did better than I did in freestyle, so he was awesome.
Well, being that we're talking about freestyle, Dre, I'm going to jump in here and skip ahead with some questions, but we'll come back to far out. So one of the things that, Chris, that I've always liked about your freestyle style is, at least from my perspective, I always feel like you just go out and try to hit your best stuff, and you take risks. And sometimes it comes off looking amazing. And sometimes, there's some missteps because you're trying crazy stuff. And like, you got a bunch of cool throws and things like that. I remember judging. I remember sitting there halfway through looking at Dre being like, he's hitting everything. Like Macho's just grabbing everything. And then just about that time, or maybe it was a little bit after that, you hit that insane double skip off of a disc laying on the ground, and then Macho catches it. Everybody from behind me, I could just hear them go nuts. I mean, you had to be feeling pretty good in the middle of your round that everything was going so well.
I was, yeah. I was feeling it. Yeah, no, I was feeling myself or whatever. I knew it was going well, and Macho is kind of the dog that when he's on it, like, I mean, everybody's dogs are that way. Like when they're in it, they're in it. And he caught bad throws. I made a couple of bad throws that still looked, to me, they were bad throws, and he saved me, or, he did a backflip and caught a catch. And he hit the brakes when he needed to hit the brakes and save me. So he was feeling it. And yeah, we were feeling it halfway through. And that skip was, that was a pretty legendary throw, I would say. For me, that was awesome.
Got it on video for sure, right? Like we have
yeah.
Quality video of that throw.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it. I couldn't. Go ahead.
Did you see did you see that they did it as a slow motion replay?
I did. Yeah, I figured they would have had to for people to see what it was, but yeah, it was Tony. I rode down there with Tony Kelso, and when I came off, he's like, "How the heck did Macho catch that skip?" Because he's like, out of your hand, and didn't look good, and and the TV tower was blocking his view, and I was like, it was the greatest throw in history. Yeah. No, I was pretty jazzed about that. That was pretty funny. Yeah. And the announcers picked it. I was hoping the announcers would like realize how ridiculous that was. And yeah, they seemed to pick up on that pretty good. So
Yeah.
was good. I saved that for TV though. That's only a TV throw. Yeah.
And halftime shows on court, you can always throw a skip there, right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
speaking
that disc was in the perfect spot, right? Just to make it pop up that second time there.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, yeah. In all reality, like I throw skips at like World Finals and stuff where the grass is a little better. In Missouri, and our grass is terrible for skips. I throw an upside down skip, but I went out and practiced. I was like, this grass is pretty good. I went out and practiced it, and like I took 5-6 throws. I'm like, perfect. This is easy. And then when I threw it, it came out of my hand a little low, and I was like, uh-oh. And I saw that other disc, and it just Macho stuck with it. That was another. I mean, the dog to like catch that was that was as hard as me throwing it kind of thing. But yeah, it worked out real well.
Yeah. Well, like I said, as a judge watching it, like I was
for us,
I was already rooting for you halfway through, just because, I mean, starting with those head over heel flips that Macho looks amazing. You guys were hitting stuff. And then when that hit, I was like, yes, come on, close it out strong. And you did.
Yeah, I mean, really, then all you needed to do was coast home. After that, you needed to coast home. We were just like, just don't lose it now, Chris. You can do it.
Yeah, no, it was I had kind of planned to not dumb it down a little bit, but sort of dumb it down a little bit and just get catches and be consistent. But I started feeling myself halfway through, and we kind of ended up throwing the kitchen sink out there. So, and it all hit. That's good. It was, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch.
It went from I was very nervous and didn't really want to play freestyle to that I was happier with that than the far out win almost. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So we've been talking about your really bold, difficult throws. What do you feel is your strength in freestyle? So we're sort of answering the question, right? But one of our questions for you is like, yeah, what's your strength? Like, what component of the game do you really work on and practice? What sets you apart from other players in freestyle?
Well, I need to practice more. That's my downfall. I work a lot and I get lazy. Marino, my old dog Marino, was such a good catching dog. I spent a lot of time practicing and then kind of coasted for years. And I need to get back to practicing with Macho. But I liked Jack's explanation of my freestyle. I haven't heard a lot of people describe it a lot. But yeah, I do think what separates me from other people is the skill of my throws. I make a lot of different throws, and I try to make the throws very good. Like I'm not just throwing an air bounce that wobbles around and the dog catches it, or I'm trying to throw that sucker that gets down in the grass and slowly rises up and hits my dog in stride. I try to make the trick throws look easy and hit the dog in stride to where they're leaping and catching it and coming back. And Macho did a very good job helping me out with that. But that's what I try to do. I mean, yeah, I don't have the spectacular type stuff a lot of people do. I try to use my dog and hit them in stride and make my dog look good. And the trick throws is definitely my strength. And Macho's a little different dog. I'm still learning the freestyle with him. He's a different dog than what I've had before and played with. Way more athletic, way more flexible. So I have good ideas for the future. We'll see if we can put him into plan. I need you to help me. There you go. I need to come take a Dre seminar
or a Jack seminar.
Or a Jack seminar. Yeah, that's right.
Time.
So, and Macho comes from some good disc dog lineage, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah, he does. You have one too now. But yeah, he does. So he's Chica and Bam Bam from Chuck Middleton, 2 multiple world champion Frisbee dogs, had a baby, and that was Macho. I describe to people like if Michael Jordan and Caitlin Clark had a baby, and you wanted to play basketball, that's kind of the litter of puppies that we got there. So
yeah, you guys are gonna have a good ride going forward.
Yeah, he's starting to mature. He's matured later than my other dogs, and he's kind of got his head about him a little more now than he has in the last couple of years. So it's becoming more fun. So kind of figuring out what he can do, what I can do. Yeah, I had black and white big border collies.
Yeah,
cattle dog and Aussie. And yeah, I had the typical black and white big border collies. So I got a little fiery dog now.
Go a little turbo now.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. Do we
All
need
right.
to talk about something else about freestyle at some point, Jack? Because I'm going to be the one this time to remind us. We could talk about far out.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Chris ended up taking home the top honors for far out, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, it was rainy that day. It was windy the previous day when you guys were practicing. So anyway, I'm just wondering, did any of the weather components did that play a part in your strategy that day?
Yeah, the weather definitely. I mean, to me, it did. The rain factor, because by the time we played, it was the last game. So, and I feel like it was even kind of sprinkling harder then. So definitely, when you're trying to grip and rip it, I mean, you got to find a dry spot on that frisbee to throw, and you can slip out. I think you saw from probably all of us made a bad throw, and I would say it was largely due to the weather. And the dog slipping or sliding. But there was a little wind. I think it was a little like left to right wind, if I remember right, which wasn't good because that track was so close on the right side. So you didn't want to like flip anything over and blow it over to into that track, because that track was like ice. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, the weather definitely did play. I mean, I know I was making sure I was finding a good dry spot to put my hand before I would make the throw and kind of lock that in, so there wouldn't get any moisture on the discs, kind of thing.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, because I'm going from memory off the top of my head here. I think were you the second player up?
I was the second player, so I had two guys behind me.
So you had Christopher and then Gary behind you.
Correct.
And it came down to was it half a yard?
I think so, maybe, yeah. I think so, half a yard.
It was,
I was thinking it was
either
like 2 yards, but I think you're right. I think it was half a yard.
Yeah, it was close regardless. And
For
I
sure.
know Gary always, a lot of times ends up pulling something out at the very end that somehow
I've been
he
I've
does
been the
that every
victim more than
time.
once.
We were all holding
Yeah,
our breath, expecting it to somehow come out of there.
So
I've been the victim more than once on that. Yes.
Okay. So were you kind of like watching that last throw of Gary's really closely? Because I'm sure that, like, did you know that it was down to that last throw?
Yeah, I did, because I think, if I remember right, I think he got a big catch on his first throw, and I was like, okay, there's Gary, and I think he may have got a miss on his second, and then a big catch on his third one, and then he turfed his fourth one.
Yeah.
So
I remember
I
that.
knew it was down to that. I knew he didn't have to throw a 90-yarder to beat me. So I knew it was down to that throw, and I couldn't see it. I saw, like, on the Jumbotron, I looked and saw it just kind of fade over the dog's head, and I was like, oh boy, there I go. There it is, I guess.
Yeah.
But
and that's what happens too. It's just like it doesn't far out's a little bit different than some of the other long distance games where you don't have to have the longest catch of the day. I mean, it obviously helps, but that consistency, and you were right in there consistent in that, what was it? High 80s, mid 80s there.
yeah, I think I had like an 80 average. So I think I threw one like 80, one like 85, and one like 75.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely, the place I had, or the turn I had to go, with people behind me. I mean, there's definitely a lot of strategy was involved there.
I was curious about were you planning on going for consistency because of your position in the running order?
Yeah, I was. I definitely was. I also, I have no shame in saying, like, if Gary makes 3 big throws and the dog catches them, I'm not beating Gary. So, what my job is to do in that is I can throw far enough. I can get Gary maybe on 1 throw, but I'm not getting Gary on 3. So my job was to throw far enough to make him have to go for it.
Yeah.
And to do that, you need 3 catches as well, because Christopher Brownlee can throw plenty as well. So when I knew he was behind me, They and I knew Gary obviously was there lurking in the shadows last, so I knew I had to get 3 catches. So my first throw, I kind of just meant to ease out there a 70, 75 yarder, get on the board, and then maybe start pushing it. It went a little further. I think probably just adrenaline gassed it up a little bit, and then I was like, okay. And also to make good throws. I wanted them in the middle of the field. I didn't want to risk shanking one and flipping it over on that track because I thought if it goes on the track, there's no way a dog's going to catch it. So Gary's first 2 catches, the dog caught him on the track. I was shocked.
Yeah.
So I'm a pretty consistent long distance thrower. So I thought that was my advantage, was that I can typically put them where I want for the most part. So yeah, I went a little bigger on the second throw and got a little more distance, and then the third throw I think slipped out of my hand a little bit and I missed. And then at that point I was kind of running out of time. The boys on the side are razzing me because they know I'm running out of time to get all the throws off. So they were razzing me pretty good, and I could hear them, and I was like, "Yep, I know." I didn't know if I had time for 2 more throws. So when Macho comes back, I was like, I kind of need to take my time. This is probably my last shot, and I actually used a different disc because I was throwing supersonics, and I grabbed a superstar because I figured it would be a more consistent disc, less risk of flipping it over or hyzering it out or something. And I was like, I just need a good throw. That I need a third catch. I need a good third catch to have a shot. And then if Macho gets back at the end, I'll try and bomb one. So that worked out. I hit it. I put enough pressure on those guys where they had to go for it. And like I said, I can't be, if Gary get those 3 bombs and dog catches the ball, he wins. To me, I think my down everything and catches everything for the most part. So I knew if I made the throws, he would do his job, and that's pretty much what happened.
That is really cool, like talking us through that strategy there. And obviously from just being way out in the field judging, I didn't realize that you changed the discs like that. Yeah. But that's excellent, man. And for those younger players that are out there, or not younger, but like, newer to the sport, players, like, to think through those different strategy pieces. It's not just going out and throwing 1, 2, 3 and not thinking about it. There's a lot of thought and strategy involved. So that was really cool, kind of talking us through your thought process there. Any tips, Chris? Like, I'm sure there's a bunch of folks listening to this that are going to want to say like, hey, I can throw 40 or I can throw 50 and I'd like to get an extra 5-10 yards. How do they do that? What's a tip that you could give them?
A tip I could give them. It's a lot about your footwork and your rotation. You use your bottom half the same as your top half. So make sure to take a good athletic step and stance, and obviously the reach back is important. Make sure you extend backwards with that disc and whip it through. A big thing that people don't focus on is the angle of the disc is very important. So you have to put the right amount of hyzer on it, or the right nose angle or trajectory of the disc also, depending on the wind. That's something I felt I did very well, is I hit the trajectory, I hit the right angles. My discs for the most part were in the middle of the field. So that led me to success. But there's a lot, and the big thing I work a lot with Kira. Kira's big quadruped thrower. And my big thing with her is, if you throw a disc and it doesn't go well, to try and figure out what made that happen and correct that for your next throw. So if you throw a disc and it flips over, put more hyzer on the next one. Or if you threw it too low and it runs into the ground, a little higher, that kind of thing. You can correct yourself from throw to throw, and figure out what makes the discs do certain things, and you learn how they fly, and that makes you much more consistent.
Excellent. Yeah, those are great things to have folks think about as they get out there and practice.
Hey, Chris, if you had to pick a favorite game between freestyle and far out, which one would be your favorite game?
My favorite game is obviously far out. I'm a big distance throw guy, I will say, but hitting a good round of freestyle is probably more enjoyable than hitting a good round of far out.
It's
Like I said,
pretty-
I was happier with my freestyle round than my far out round. My freestyle round was just kind of like, I bet I'll get like one of the backflips will be on TV. That's it. So
Yeah.
for the fact that I did well and got the whole routine showed, and I was much happier with that. And yeah, that definitely takes not that long distance doesn't, but that I think far out or freestyle also shows the bond you have with your dog and the amount of work and effort you put in. So yeah, it's a double answer there.
I
Far
like
out's
that.
my favorite.
That's
Yeah,
all right.
if I had to go play one tonight, I'd go play far out. But freestyle, a good freestyle round is more enjoyable. Yeah.
So pretty much how most of these podcast episodes have been gone so far, Chris, is that we don't get to leave the question and answer part until the person has agreed with Andrea that freestyle is the best game.
That's not entirely.
Yeah.
But I do want to ask you, this is the first time that we had freestyle in the AKC Disc Dog Challenge. So are there any games that you'd like to see that haven't been featured or that you'd like to see featured next year?
I do like the fact that freestyle was featured. I think they did a good job of showing that. I think Jason and the other gal did a good job commentating that. I mean, obviously Jason's got a lot of knowledge to help explain the stuff that people don't always see or understand. Jason did a very good job explaining some of my throws. Like I had a friend, my buddy watched it. And he's like, "Man, who's this guy on TV on ESPN's gassing you up pretty good?" I'm like, "Well, we've known each other for like 10 years, so."
Hate him. Come on.
"Oh." But trying to think. I mean, for showing on TV, some are hard. I feel like maybe I don't know. Spaced Out would be a good one for TV. I love playing the game of Spaced Out. I think Boom would probably be fun to watch. Something that's kind of razor's edge. You're watching somebody climb the ladder, and do they fall off or do they hit it, kind of thing. Those are always fun to watch and fun to play for me. So it's kind of what game would I like to play versus what I think would be good on TV. And, those would be my two options. Be like Boom, Spaced Out.
Strategy.
Am I missing any?
And tight, like exciting last second strategy games.
Yeah, something that the audience can figure out what they're doing while they're watching it, and kind of figure out the strategy.
So, Chris, before we leave the AKC TV piece here, just curious, being that you are on national television and it definitely airs more than one time, I think they usually air it 5 or 6 times. Did you have anybody, like maybe a long lost friend or family member, like reach out to you? Any kind of like, fame that you got a little bit with this?
I did actually. I had an old teacher from high school.
Wow,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and he's funny because he's the guy that, like, we're friends on Facebook, so he knows I do the Frisbee Dog stuff, and he's the guy. He sends me like the video of Sam Valley doing the Eagles game every year, and I'm like, "Yeah, thanks, Mr. Linden, I got it," And but he sent me a message, and he said, "You'll never believe what just happened." That I went over to my buddy's house to watch the UK game. He's a big Kentucky basketball fan. So he said, I went over to my buddy's house to watch a Kentucky basketball game today, and I was a little early, so we turned it on ESPN before the game started. And he's like, "You'll never believe what I saw, who I saw." And he's like, "Yeah, there you were, throwing log bobs to your dog, and you won." And I was like, "Yep, thanks for living." So yeah, no, that was super cool.
That's awesome.
That was probably the coolest. I mean, I told a lot of my friends and family to watch, so I knew they were watching. But yeah, there were definitely some people, and then there were kids, people I went to college with 20 years ago that were like, "Oh my god!" There's another girl that I went to college with, so gosh, I'm old now. It's 20 years ago, and she said it came on, and her and her husband were watching it, and she said, I went to college with a guy that does this type of stuff. And literally, I was the next guy up doing the freestyle. She's like, "Oh my god, that's it!" And her husband didn't believe it. Yeah, her husband didn't believe her. She'd like pull me up on Facebook, but No, yeah, that was cool. And that Mr. Littman, and that was like he was my teacher that like he was my teacher. Like he was my favorite teacher kind of guy. So that was super cool. Yeah.
That's awesome that you guys were able to connect that
And I
way.
didn't post any and I didn't post anything about it on Facebook necessarily. So like he had no idea. He just stumbled upon that. So it was kind of cool that that's the way it shook out. But
All right, that is awesome. Well, Chris, we're about to let you go and start your weekend, but before we let you go, we have this segment that we call Time Warp on our podcast where Dre's going to set a timer for 60 seconds, and we are going to blitz you with up to 10 questions. You get 60 seconds to answer as many as possible. Don't think too much about your responses. They're very simple questions, a lot of them kind of yes and no type of things. It just lets our audience kind of get to know you a little bit better, and it's kind of fun. Dre, you ready?
Perfect. Let's do it.
I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready. You're doing the first question, though, right?
I'm ready. I'm ready for double duty. I got it this time.
All right.
Ready, set, go. Are you more of a thinker or a doer?
Thinker.
Right.
Both. It's weird. I don't know. It's a hard question.
See, he's thinking too much about it already. Let's get going here. Could you name more than 10 U.S. presidents? You don't have to do it, but could you?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Dre, go.
What's your favorite disc dog disc to throw?
What's my favorite disc dog disc?
Yeah.
Super Swirl.
Ooh.
Hero Super Swirl.
All right. Would you rather travel to the past or the future?
30 seconds.
The past.
What's your favorite up dog game?
Spaced Out.
Wow. That took
Would
longer
you-
than
Or,
Do you want
or
to
far out.
see? He's a thinker. All right.
Well,
Do you want to enter the pool with a tiptoe or a cannonball?
Cannonball. For sure.
if you were to write a book, what would it be about? 2, 1. Last question.
Probably my life.
All right.
Time.
All right. We got through 7 questions. That was pretty good.
Questions, pretty good. I think you lost it on like that first or second one. It's going to have to be a strong comeback if we were going to get through all 10. But thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us today on our podcast. And Jack, thanks as always for being my buddy here on the UpDog podcast. For you guys at home, if there's a topic you want us to cover on the UpDog podcast, keep it in mind. We're going to be asking you for topic suggestions and conversations that you want to have on the UpDog discussion page. So keep an eye out for that.
Dre, thanks for co-hosting with me. Chris, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and insights about the AKC Disc Dog Challenge and so much more as well.
Thanks for having me on, and thanks for inviting me to that. That was a great time.
Excellent. And we hope that we see you guys out on the UpDog field sometime soon.
And be kind to each other.
And be kind to your dogs.
I think this week is going to be more of a relaxing.
Pickleball.
Pickleball.